Hey, I'm Alex Ratcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Fiction from Allplay and designed by Peter Hayward. Fiction is a 2 to 8 player game of deduction, but competitive deduction. You're going to have the librarian, and that lie is very heavily accented because it is a librarian who is trying to deceive the clue givers in the game. This is a take on Wordle, the general idea being that you're going to have a 5-letter word in which the librarian is going to pick that word from one of these cards over here. Let's go ahead and grab one. We have the Great Gatsby. There's a few cards from the Great Gatsby over here, and we're going to pick a specific word from here. So maybe we pick craze. Craze is a good one. It has a little Z. It's going to throw people off because they're never going to imagine it. And so we're going to take that craze word. We're going to go to our little board over here, and we're going to put down into this area over here. We're going to draw down the word craze in this box over here. This is our word, and now we have to give information to the other players, to the other team, as to one of the letters in play. And I'm going to go ahead and give them a C. Let's have them agonize over that. They'll go ahead, they'll mark off the C on this board over here. They know there's a C in play, and they'll submit their first guess. And their first guess, let's go ahead and go with, I don't know, track. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put down track over here. They are guessing track as their first word, at which point I'm going to come back to my board over here, and I'm going to specifically mark down on this board which one of those are accurate or not. So for example, lining up track here, there is no T in the game at all, so we're going to go ahead and mark off that there's no T. There is an R, and it's actually in the correct space over there. There's an A in the correct space over there. There's a C that's in the wrong space, so we're going to give that little squiggly line over there. And there's a K over here, which is incorrect. And now here is where the librarian has some choices. Because this is not a cooperative game. This is not a pure deduction game. This is a game of messing with your opponents as they try to figure out what's going on. And to that end, you have the agency to lie. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to look at this board over here, and I'm going to go ahead and mark off that the C is actually, by the C is in the wrong place, but it should be a little squiggly line over there. I'm going to go ahead and mark off that, sure enough, squee is in the squiggly line. I'm going to mark off that the R is... Let's mark off that the R is not present at all. We're going to leave the A in the right place. We're going to go ahead and leave the squiggly line on that Z over there, on the C I mean. Oh wait, I did it incorrectly. I'm doing it correctly first time. That should have been an X over here. So we're going to go ahead and mark off the X. I'm looking at the C instead of the correct board over here. And then we're going to go ahead and mark off the K. So the R is in the correct space, the A is in the correct space, the C is the squiggly line, and then the K is not in play. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to submit back to them this clue over here, and I'm going to mark it accordingly. Once I've done everything behind the screen, I'm going to mark it accordingly so they can go ahead and see what they have over here. And now the players have this information to work with. The only problem is one of these pieces of information is a lie, and it must be a lie. They don't necessarily know what it is, they know it must be a lie. They'll go ahead and they'll put down the next clue over here, and they'll try to figure out what's next over here. We have that information, we have the track word, what could be coming next. That A looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and lock in that A over there. We have the A correctly, we don't know where the C is. Let's go ahead and put down the C. Okay, let's go ahead and put down C. We could do, I don't know, chart. We could do chart, okay? Well, the R over there, we know there's no R in play, but maybe the line to us. Maybe the line to us. Let's go ahead and do chart anyway. No, but there's no T. Chats. No, we got a T. Let's do chats. Let's do chats anyway. We're going to do chats over here. We're going to go submit it. And then again, once again, looking back over here, we're going to see that the C is in the correct place over here this time round. The H is not in play at all. The A is in the correct place. The T is not in play at all, and the S is not in play at all. But once again, we have to go ahead and lie. So we don't have to, well, we do have to go ahead and lie. We'll go ahead and give them that A over there. The C will give them the C. Ooh, you know what? What if we just move the C again? We're going to go ahead and move the C and go X, X, X over here. And that's going to be our information there, which means we're going to once again show them the information, and they can go ahead and piece together the pieces of information and have them try to figure out what actually is and isn't true. Because a big part of this, and this is where we're going to show you the first tool you have, because a big part of this is trying to figure out where the lie is occurring. If you can figure out where the lie is occurring, you can figure out what everything else is locked in as. And so to that end, what we're going to do right now is we're going to go ahead, we're suspicious that they're actually going to go ahead and tell us that the A is or isn't correct. And so we'll use one of our 3-factor fiction tokens, and we'll ask, is that A fact or fiction? They'll go ahead and mark it down as fact, and we know that this is correct, and because we know this is correct, well, it actually gives us less information than if we knew where the lie is. Generally, using your fact and fiction tokens, you want to try to find the lie. It'll give you a lot more information. But at least we have the A locked in. We can go ahead to our little player board over here, we can mark in the A over here, and we can go ahead and show that we are making progress, and that's where I'll stop the whole demonstration, because you're going to do this for 10 rounds. At the end of 5 rounds, you're going to reset the timer. I didn't tell you this part, but there is a 10-minute timer at play for the clue givers to put together information. You're going to go to round 2, where you continue if the 10-minute timer runs out, or when you've done 5 guesses, you move to the next batch of clues. There are also some variants to make the game harder, such as, giving fewer tokens of these to the other players, but that is basically how you play through Fact or Fiction. There's also, on these cards over here, one more thing to talk about. You'll see there's red and yellow spots. The yellow spots represent regular clues, and the red spots are ways to level up the game if you find that the clue guessers are having too easy a time, and that's going to incorporate the fact that you can now have double word clues in your game. And that is basically how you play Fiction from Allplay, from Peter Hayward. Let's go ahead and talk about my opinion of the game. But let's start off with just a quick recap. The general idea is this is a Wordle-inspired game in which you're trying to figure out what the word is in play, picked from a selection of cards over here, but you're operating with a librarian who is operating against the rest of the table and trying to guide the lies in order to effectively outwit the players across 10 rounds of play and prevent them from figuring out what exactly that word is, which is going to require cleverly placed lies throughout the course of the game. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into the review, starting off with the ease of play. The rulebook has a typical all-play length, which is to say there's, this many pages over here. We got this is all we got. Just that. Nothing crazy over here. That's the rulebook in the game. Very easy to go through the rulebook. It is a bit more to process. It is not the easiest game to understand, considering there's only this much text over here, but it still is relatively easy to pick up. I would just say that this is it's a drop more complicated than this would imply, but it still is easy enough to get going. Game length can vary. There's two 10-minute timers, but there's also the actual clue giver who has some time in there. You're generally looking at between 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how things go. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, the basic idea of Fiction is that it adds a lot to a genre that's been done before. It adds a lot to word games in general. It adds a lot to deduction games and the combination they're in. It builds off Wordle, which took the world by storm, an incredibly popular app, and it builds off that premise, but it keeps it more interesting by not being straight deduction. This is a game where it's not purely about the deductive aspect of things, rather it's about how you work against the clue guessers, and the clue guessers have to interpret and figure out where the lies are in order to move the game forward, in order to figure out what the answer is. There's a lot that gets added by adding that one lie, that one element of uncertainty, as you try to figure out it's not pure deduction, but rather it's deduction against someone who's trying to utilize the system against you, trying to throw you off at any turn, and even when they contradict themselves, you can't always be sure in which way they were contradicting themselves and which one was the accurate from the things that were done in the game system. And so overall, that one little lie drives this game forward. The timer of the game, that one keeps it moving forward as well. The fact that you have those timers keeps the game moving. It means it's not stuck in a forever loop in the game, which can happen. You'll have times where you only use 4 minutes in your timer, and you'll have times where you're counting down to the last 17 seconds, and you have still 3 less guesses left to go. The timer is a relevant factor, but ultimately, Fiction is just a good twist on a classic deduction puzzle. There's nothing overly complicated here. If you like this style of game, if you like deduction games, if you like Wordle, and if you want something that gives a nice twist on those things, that's what Fiction brings to the table. But it really is that one lie that is the innovative part here. The rest of it is taking the familiar, putting their own twist and spin on it, and then delivering this game over here. As far as what I don't like in the game, it's still just a word game with limited ways you can expand upon it. These cards add nice degree of flavor, reading passages from books over here, choosing the words that way, which also keeps the word pool, not something completely crazy, but there are nice twists and quality of life improvements here. But ultimately, it's still a back and forth word game with limited other things in the mix, which means that there's only so high this game can go for me, because that style of game is a fun little puzzle, but it's a fun little puzzle and not more than that to me. As far as what I can see others not liking, there's a few things over here. The first is that it's easy to make mistakes as the clue giver when you're trying to deliver the guesses back to the people, to the clue guessers. It's easy to not realize exactly what you did, and you have to be on top of your game. You have to be double checking, making sure to deliver it back. It just slows down the game a bit and or results in mistakes, neither of which is particularly great. I'll also say that the twist of lying, as much as it builds the game for me, it might be the thing that makes you not like this game. If you like deduction and pure deduction is your jam, and this might not be your thing, because that extra little lie throws off every single rule of play you've had until now. Every single aspect of if this, then that, and if this, and if we combine this, and slowly whittling your way down to a perfect answer, that's all fun and games, but at the end of the day, the lie is what keeps things interesting, but it throws you off if you are just looking for pure deduction, because it's not pure deduction, it's deduction framed around the lie that the librarian is constantly giving you every single time. And that also makes it easy to not have a good handle on strategy, regardless of which side you're on. Whether it's the clue guessers trying to figure out how to incorporate your regular deductive guesses against someone who's lying to you, and also as the librarian trying to figure out what kinds of lies will actually keep them on the hook for more than 10 rounds so that you can win the game, because, you know, going with a lie that will be easily discovered or easily caught out won't help you so much as trying to find something that you can massage and nuance and find ways to make sure you're obfuscating yourself for as long as possible. There is a lot of strategy to that, and that just might make this not a game system that's for you because of the fact that the twist both keeps it interesting but also makes it unfamiliar. It's a double-edged sword. As far as final thoughts on Fiction, I really like this one. I enjoy Fiction. I enjoy Wordle a lot. I'm one of those people who, I have my on and off months, but Wordle is a game system that I will go through for months on end, really enjoying what it has to offer, really enjoying what it brings to the table, and I like that. I like this twist on that. I like the fact that this gives me a classic word game, and it gives you a twist to keep it interesting. It's no longer player against the machine, but it's player against player, people pitting their minds against each other, trying to figure out which person is better at finding the lies and which person is better at inserting them at the exact correct places, and so it really turns it into it takes a good system, a system I already like, and it makes it more innovative and interesting. For me, Fiction is a 4 out of 5. I really enjoy this one. If you like word games, if you like deduction games, if you like the combination of the two, I think Fiction is a good one that will satisfy you. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, Hooky. If you're looking for more of a cooperative system within this kind of framework, well, not really cooperative, it's competitive against each other, not cooperative at all, but Hooky will give you a different style of word game where instead of having a clue guesser and clue givers, you'll have different clue givers, or different clue givers trying to take turns guessing and figuring out which students are not in school using a similar deductive kind of system. And then if you're looking for a game that has that same iterative process as far as how to line up information but not in an obvious way, Decrypto is a game that's very different in its actual implementation, but has some of the same mental feel, that puzzle as far as how to connect the dots across things that eventually slowly coalesce to give you combined pieces of information. I'm Alex Ratcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you found this video helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.